Emotes are everything on Twitch. And today I'm going to teach you how to make some of your very own. And it's going down. What's up, everybody? Rob Gardner here, aka the PokerPastor, and I stream live on Twitch 4 days a week. Here on this channel, we strategize how to get better at life on and off the poker felt. As always, if you get anything from these videos, hit that like button below. We greatly appreciate it. And drop us some feedback in the comment section. We love to interact with you and hear how these videos are helping you on your stream journey. Last but not least, if you'll hit that subscription button, you'll get notifications whenever we post new videos. So if you have been a streamer on Twitch for any length of time, you know how important emotes are to your stream journey. They are used by your community to engage with you and interact with you on a regular basis. They kind of reflect your brand. They're also great for marketing as people use these emotes in other people's channels. And if you have really, really good emotes, you're going to get more and more subscribers on your stream and bring in more revenue. But trying to get good emotes can be a challenge sometimes. Artists can be expensive. If you go to cheaper platforms like Fiverr, it can be hit and miss. Sometimes people will sell you emotes they've already made to other people, or maybe they'll make an emote that's not quite what you were envisioning. So today we're going to hop into Adobe Photoshop, part of the Adobe suite, and we're going to teach you guys how to make emotes of your very own. All right, so today we are going to show you how to create an emote using Adobe Photoshop. We're just going to come up with a fictitious emote, pretending that we're making an emote for a poker player called King. And so we're going to start by doing create new. And when you make emotes, you have to make emotes in three sizes: 112 by 112, 56 by 56, which is half that, and 28 by 28, which is half of that. So usually what we'll do is we'll create the 112 one first and kind of work down from there. So same settings as before, 72 pixels per inch, RGB color, 8-bit, and definitely you want transparent so that if you want the emote to show through on the background, it will do so. Okay, so we're going to have this space. I'm going to hit Control plus a couple times to zoom in. So look, the idea I have for this is we're going to put like a poker chip in here, kind of have a crown hanging off of the top of it, a little tilted to the right, and then King in gold lettering across the bottom. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to Google, and there's a couple things you can do as far as, like, let's just say you wanted an emote of a bear or a frog or whatever. Like, you can go to images.google.com and you can search for, like, we're going to search for poker chip. And then when you're using images.google.com, you want to make sure that you're getting images that you have use for. So if you're just like a recreational streamer, you're not doing it professionally or anything, you can do the labeled for non-commercial. The best way to go is just to do labeled for reuse, which means that this is a this allows you basically to use these images legally and royalty free. So like if you wanted a bear, you could just put like a bear in here. Another thing you can do, or like bear cartoon, right? Another thing you can do if you want to find some images is look for clip art, and there's actually clip art sites out there like iClipart.com that you can sign up for relatively cheap, and you can download all types of clip art images here. So like we could put in like a bear mascot, right? And you'd have all of these different images. And so like this is kind of like a mascot looking bear that you could use. And so sometimes these won't be the best quality, but maybe they inspire you in some way. Sometimes you might see something that you like perfectly and you can just come in, copy and paste it, make it in the three sizes and be done. But we specifically are going to be trying to do this King icon. So we're going to do poker chip. And we're going to look for something that we can cut out that looks nice and clean. All right, so we'll go ahead and use this. So I'm going to copy this image. Royalty free, so we know we're good there. We're going to go back into Photoshop, and I'm just going to create a new image. Paste this in. So now we want to select basically the poker chip. I'm just going to go ahead and see which one we want. Let's do the red one. I think that looks like the best one. So a couple ways you can do this. We're going to copy this, and same thing, Control N for new, and just paste this in. So we just have that image here. And then I'm going to use this magic wand tool and select the background. Now you'll see it doesn't quite completely select the background because the shade of black in here is just slightly different than the shade out here. So we're going to change this tolerance. The higher up this is, the more the more color difference it's going to accept. And again, you're going to have to play with it a little bit. We're going to put it at 25. That's pretty close. Now, once we have a good round selection around what we want, because it's around the outside, I'm just going to select and I'm going to go to modify, expand, and I'm going to expand by 1 pixel here, just so that it's getting a little bit of the outside matting, and it gets rid of that kind of like blend to black, because we don't want it to affect the next picture. And then I'm going to hit the delete key, or the backspace key will delete it. And now you can see with the transparent checkers there that we've got the transparent background. And now we can copy this. And again, we can paste it to a new image, change the size by going to image size. We want this to be smaller than the actual emote. So I'm going to go like 90. Okay. Now we go back to our original image here. This is the 112 by 112, and you can see the image fits rather nicely. Okay, I'll move this down a little bit. So the next thing we want to do is we want a spot for the crown. So I'm going to move this image a little bit over down and to the left, because we're going to have the crown kind of tilted here. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to come up here to Google Images, put a crown in. And you want to keep it simple. Like something like really fancy like this, when you start shrinking it down, it's just going to look like clutter. You just want a clean, simple crown. Like this isn't terrible. The size is not quite what we want in terms of like the width and height, but I'll show you how to fix that. So we're going to save this image. Again, if it's a transparent background, if you see this dark background, you can't copy and paste because it's going to fill the background in. So anytime in Google you see this dark checkered background, that means it's transparent, which is good, but you need to save the file first. So we're going to save that. I'm going to come into Photoshop. We're going to open that file. And this image is really, really big. You can see it's 33% size right now. So if we go to image size, 3,000 pixels. We don't want it to be anywhere near that wide. We're going to start at 50. And now it's really small. We can zoom in to where it's full size. I'm going to copy this. We're going to paste this. Now, we want this to look like it's kind of sitting on the chip, like tilted a little bit to the side. So what I'm going to do is, first thing we're going to do is we want to stretch this out. Like it's really tall and not very wide. So we're going to go to Transform Scale. I'm going to click this, which basically is going to say we can change the width without the height changing. If this is dark, like if this is filled in, then as I size out, it makes it bigger too. Okay. And we want to make this wider so that the width is better. So we're going to unclick this. We're just going to stretch this out a little bit. Okay. Like that. Now the crown kind of looks more flat. It's not quite as tall as an extreme. All right. Now we want to rotate it so that it looks like it's kind of tipped and at the top of the thing. Now, first thing you'll notice here is like chip is too big and the crown goes off the top. So we're going to go into the chip and we're going to make this chip a little bit smaller. Okay. And we're going to rotate this crown a little bit more. There, it won't be off the screen. So we'll move the chip down. That. Now we want the crown to kind of like look like it's kind of on the chip here. So we're going to do a little effect here called a drop shadow. And what this does, it's a little bit like the outer glow, except I got to be on the right layer here. what this is a little bit like the outer glow, except it's specifically in a direction. So instead of being the entire item, we want it to just be down a little bit. Now, the first thing you'll notice, see how the outer glow is actually, or the drop shadow is the entire ship. I'm going to show you guys what we can do with this in a second. But first, let's just get this kind of right. We want the angle to kind of match the direction of the crown. We don't want this to be near as big as it is. That looks good. Now we really only want the shadow on this part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. It's going to give us 2 of them. And then on the top one, we're going to clear the layer style, because this one, we just want the actual crown. Okay. So we're going to go to clear layer style. Then we're going to hide this for a second. And on the bottom one, all we need is this bottom object, bottom part of the shadow, because we don't need all the shadow on this frilly stuff. So I'm going to come into our little selection tool here, and I'm just going to get rid of everything but the bottom of the object. And what that's going to do, as you can see here, is now we get the nice shadow on the chip, but we don't get all this other shadow up here. And then I'll turn this back on, and now you can see we don't have any of the shadow here, but we've got the nice shadow on the chip. So if we zoom out to the normal size here, kind of looks like the crown is on the chip. Looks pretty cool. Okay. Now the chip kind of like doesn't stand out the best. So one of the things I'll do just to kind of test it, you see I've got this gray here. It's kind of a nice little trick you can do for the emotes is you can make a little gray box and throw it in the background. And then that kind of simulates what like Twitch chat looks like. Just to kind of see here. And if you do this, just make sure you remember to clear this when you save it. Like make sure you un-eye this, or your entire emote is going to be gray. You don't really want that in there. But if you just want a test thing, you can kind of look at this and turn it off. So we're gonna kind of give this just a little bit of an edge. Again, I'm gonna go to left to the style, outer glow. Selecting the wrong layer here. There we go. Outer glow. And that's way more than we need here. We're just looking to get a little bit of edge on it, just enough, like that. Gives it kind of a nice, it pops a little bit, but it's not overwhelming, okay? All right, and now the last thing is we need the text on the bottom, the king. We got to get king on here. So we're going to come down here. We're going to create a text layer. Now you got to be careful. See how this like highlighted over here? What this did is because if we had this layer selected and we click the title, it tries to lock the text to the layer. So don't panic. Just hit Control Z. And what you can do is just create a new layer by clicking this here and then hit your text so that it's not locked, because we don't really want it to be locked to another layer and then have to mess with moving things around and moving layers to get the text to move. We just want the text layer to be its own entity. So we're going to put king in here. We're just going to make this white for now so we can see it. Move this to the top. Bring this down here. Now, a couple things with fonts. These emotes get really small. This 112 by 112 rarely gets seen. Usually the text you're going to see the most common is going to be in the 28 by 28 size. So whatever font you use, you want it to be clean so that it's easy to see. If you come in and you try and use some like really fancy like grunge font that's all cool looking, by the time you get it down to a small size, it's going to be impossible to read. So I know it's cool to have like really cool fonts, but honestly, being clean is the most important thing here. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to create a gradient. We want this to kind of match the crown so that we get that kind of gold royalty vibe here, right? So I'm going to go to layer, layer style, gradient overlay. And we're going to come in here. I've already got a gradient similar to this. Basically, the way this works is you have what's called these color stops, and you can add color stops by clicking. If you click on a color stop, you can click delete. And any of these, oops, no, I guess you have to click delete here. Sorry. So if you click that, you can click delete down here to get rid of it. Any of these color stops can be dragged and you can change the color. So I like to use this kind of like halfway in the middle bar just to give it some depth. And then I like to choose two colors that are kind of similar to each other, but not over the top. Now, we do want to get the kind of gold vibe. So one of the cool things you can do when you get into this color picker is you can actually mouse over the image and you can actually pick a color from the image. So we're going to try and make this match the crown. So I'm picking this color here from the crown. And then we want this to just have a little bit of sheen, but not crazy. So like we want to get just like a slightly brighter color here. Okay. That kind of gives it nice sheen, and you can play with like how wide the color spare is. Like you can make it really tight if you want it to look like a line, or you can kind of spread it out so it looks more like kind of a fade here. And then we want this text to really pop. So you can use a stroke or an outer glow. I think the outer glow tends to look a little bit cleaner. You can also do both. Like you can come in here, make a stroke, and then use the outer glow as well, just to make sure that the text really, really pops. And again, a lot of times with these settings, you're going to have to kind of play with it, just kind of tweak the numbers. The spread determines how wide it is. The size determines like kind of the growth of it. So like if you want the kind of the whole bottom to kind of be faded dark, like you can kind of make the size really big and keep the spread smaller. If you want it to be more solid, you can kind of make the spread big and see it kind of matches the shape of the object here, right? And either are kind of a fine route to go. One other thing we could consider doing, like you can kind of see the poker chip sticking out. So we could go down to the poker chip and actually kind of just go ahead and kill it here below the text, right? And that just kind of makes it feel like the king pops even more. Now, the thing we're going to want to do now, all right, so that's what it looks like without. This is kind of what it would look like in chat. And so you can see, like, if you were looking at this, you'd be like, this doesn't look very well, but that's not really what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to look like. So it's always a good idea to make that square just so you can see. Just remember, again, you got to click this and then save it this way. So what you would do is you would go File, Save As. And then you always want to save it as a PNG file. That's what you upload to the site. And then I would do like King 112 because this is the 112 image, right? So once that was done, it'll come up with this little screen. You'll hit OK. It's saved. Now we go and do the 56 by 56. So we go to image size. That brings this up. Type 56 in here. It'll automatically change the height and you hit OK. And same thing, you want to click the box, okay, the text is really easy to read, the chip looks okay, the crown looks okay, so we're good. We unclick it, File, Save As, and now we would do our King 56. Right? And then there's one more to do. Go to image size, 28, and we click there. Now, sometimes when you get down to the size, the text is not going to be very easy to read. Like when you get the text down here. So sometimes what you have to do on the 28 by 28 that people aren't willing to do is you have to go in and be willing to play with the text a little bit, change the shadow, make the stroke a little bit darker, maybe change the size. This actually looks pretty good. It's pretty okay to read, so I will leave this. But just note, sometimes you're going to have to go in and just change the font specifically for the 28 by 28. But once you've got it where you want it, same dealy. You're going to get rid of the background. Save as. King 28. Okay. Now, once you've got all three of your images ready, you're going to come into Twitch. You're going to go to your dashboard. You're going to come up here and you're going to go to Preferences, Affiliate. And then you'll see right here, there's emotes. And then all of your emotes pop up and you have the ability to edit them. So I'm actually going to get rid of one of these just so you guys can see how this works. So if I was to delete this, Now we have an option here. You're going to click this, go back to your directory, and you're going to grab the 112 image. Then you're going to click this and grab the 56 image. Then you're going to click this and you're going to grab the 28 image. And there you can see all 3 emotes right there. You put a unique emote in for it. You hit save changes. And now all you got to do is wait for Twitch to update the emote. That's really it. If you have any additional questions about how to make emotes, feel free to hit me in the comments. I'm happy to help you. Maybe I can give you some further instructions or give you some guidelines. If you're just in a hurry and you really don't have time for all this, you can always hit me up. I do emote work, and we can talk about getting an emote made for you professionally. But you can see this is not a hard process. It took us about 20 minutes to make, and at least this way you can feel confident in what you make versus going out and having to pay somebody to do it. That's it for me, PokerPastor. As I say always, dream big and be bigger.